Hello everybody, welcome strangers from around the world. Wow, this is terrifying. In saying that, I'm so looking forward to completely oversharing all my personal effects, parading any lack of boundaries that I have, all the while leading you down a path of distraction, comedy, yes, education, that's probably one of the key elements, but also just to mix this conference up, presenting with deeply sarcastic comments about most things. So thank you for tuning in and good luck to all of us. I'm coming to you from Melbourne, down under in Australia. My aim for the conference is to be the most bogan presenter of all the panellists in order to authentically represent Australia in at least one capacity. Not sure if any of the other presenters have set such major goals for themselves, but I believe this to be important. In saying that, you would be ill-advised to think that anyone in Australia presents as uniquely as I do, as you're about to witness. Though my sarcasm might be on point for representing Australia as well. I'm probably best to introduce myself at some point. We are the Elephant Journal system. I'll introduce myself as Laura. I'm the host of this system, but who knows who will turn up throughout this, as it has been Cleo's brainchild. So she'll be here to share all the nerdy information. Meanwhile, Declan, who's 14 and the smartass of my system, has been working hard to make sure he puts his 2 bits in ever he could. So you may find this to be a rather peculiar version on how to present at an international conference. So let's kick this thing off. So I'm a virgin, as in this is my first video I'll ever put online, a video virgin. I'm not technically savvy, so fingers crossed this all works. Otherwise feel free to laugh along with me as I painfully discover how to make a video. If nothing goes wrong, well then my secret's out. I clearly got help and not from a psych this time. Saying that, I wouldn't actually put it past my psych. She's kind of all sorts of amazing. She's constantly putting up with all my ramblings and mood swings and everyone else's mood swings, so anyway. While I'm doing this, I want you to join in a game. Recently at my house when I do something stupid or crazy, my housemate kind of just looks at me, knowing full well that I'll have to tell my psych about this one. And he started this slogan of sorts, which, if you feel you need to use throughout the video at any time, repeat after me. That poor woman. That poor woman. Cool, so we've got our safe words established. I'm rambling already. We're off to a flying start. Actually, that could be the problem. Shout out to all the mood disorders. Whoop whoop! It turns out that my presentation is like show and tell at the same time. Where were we? Right, so I am the Elephant Journal system. We were originally in the promo advertised as the Puddle system, so apologies for any confusion. We were just an unnamed system at the time of submissions. We then got envious and a little bit slightly jealous of the other panelists having a system name and seemingly to have all of their poo in order. So we panicked, chose one, and since have collectively found a name that better represents our ideology of ourselves. So this presentation is a part of the Plural Positivity World Conference. Today I'm telling you stuff you already know. See how much you're learning already? Amazing! So plurality occurs in both DID and OSDD. Throughout this video, if all the OSDDs could do me a solid and substitute their disorder when I say DID, when we get into the dissociative discussion section, that would be very helpful and save extra rambling, for which I'm sure there will be excessive amounts of anyway, just like right now. So let's talk DID. It's dissociative identity disorder. You may have heard of it by now. It is now day 3 of the conference. DID is a complex post-traumatic developmental disorder. The DSM-5 specifically locates the Dissociative Disorders chapter after the chapters on trauma and stress-related disorders, thereby acknowledging the relationship of dissociative disorders to psychological trauma. The core features of DID are usually accompanied by a mixture of psychiatric systems rather than dissociative symptoms, as these are typically the patient's first presenting complaints. As it is common among individuals with complex post-traumatic developmental disorders, DID patients suffer from symptoms and have comorbidities associated with mood, anxiety, personality, eating, functional somatics, and substance use disorders, as well as psychosis, among other things. DID can be overlooked due to both this polysymptomatic profile and the patient's tendency to be ashamed and avoidant about revealing their dissociative symptoms and history of childhood trauma, the latter of which strongly implies the presence of DID when looking at it diagnostically. So even though we have now 4 decades worth of research and an authoritative research base, there are still, unfortunately, several misconceptions and myths about the disorder that still remain. This is compromising for both patient care and research, but hopefully one World Conference at a time we can bust through some of these myths that are going around and destigmatize the disorder. It is my task and privilege today that I get to talk to you about the 3 Ds in relation to plurality. These consist of derealisation, depersonalization, and denial, if you read the topic before clicking in to join me. Once again, knowledge you already know. Any much learning. So in order to talk about these first 3, we first need to talk about dissociation, as these are all forms or types of dissociation. Dissociation in its everyday form is defined as causing disconnect or separation. So what does that mean for us as people? We don't suddenly split in half or lose a limb. Dissociation comes from past or presenting trauma, which triggers the brain to react in a multitude of ways in order to protect itself. It is a mental process where a person can disconnect from their thoughts, feelings, memories, and even sense of self and identity, including feeling numb, detached, or unreal. Another definition states it is a psychological experience in which people feel disconnected from their sensory experiences, sense of self, or personal history. All are true. Everybody dissociates. Hell, they even put it on a spectrum. The first part demonstrates atypical human behaviour and reactions, and then we go all the way up to the disorder section. I'll put a link of a picture at the bottom of this if you're interested in checking it out afterwards. I have no idea how to do that yet, but it'll happen. So from driving your car to work and not realising that you don't even remember how you got there, to daydreaming, these are on the bottom end of the spectrum. They're considered very normal, typical behaviour. But for people who have experienced trauma, we slide up to the opposite end of the spectrum. Dissociation is one of the most common responses to abuse and trauma, and everybody dissociates can be very dramatically different. The same person can dissociate in a multitude of ways. Here's a handful of symptoms of dissociating I found on an infographic on Pinterest. Let's see if any of these sound familiar. Do you find yourself staring off at one spot, not thinking anything? Feeling completely numb? Feeling like you're not really in your body, like you're watching yourself in a movie? Or suddenly feeling lightheaded or dizzy? Losing the plot or conversation that you were focused on? Feel as if you're not quite real, like you're in a dream? Feel as if you're floating? Suddenly feel like you're not a part of the world around you? Feeling detached and far away from other people who may seem mechanical or unreal to you? Be startled or by somebody or something who gets your attention? Completely forget what you were thinking a moment ago. Aha! And here I thought I was going manic. Maybe I'm dissociating. Sometimes it's hard to tell the difference. Porque los dos. I'm hoping that ad went international. Otherwise, you bet. Let's just chuck in some Spanish. It translates to why not have both? It's from a taco ad. My presentation of dissociation, now in 3D and live action. Sorry, the list. It could also cover suddenly covering up your face as if you're reacting from being hurt or for no reason at all. You can't remember important information about yourself, like your age or where you live. You find yourself rocking back and forth. You become very focused on small or trivial objects or events. You find that voices, sounds, writing all seem very far away, and sometimes you have trouble understanding them. And you feel as if you've just experienced a flashback, perhaps rapidly, but you can't remember anything about it, and you perceive your body as foreign and not belonging to you. This is a mixed assortment of types of dissociation that can be experienced. In there, you might have noticed some of our 3Ds. If not, you might want to keep on listening as we can go through them together when we get further on this super fun ride. So this list by no means is all the ways that people can dissociate, but merely a handful of examples I thought gave a good scope. For me personally, the majority of the time when I begin to dissociate, it's as if floodlights have been snapped on in front of me, and my eyes can't adjust to the brightness. And you know that feeling when it goes from dark to light and your eyes take a moment to be able to see clearly again, and you get those balls of light from the flash? I have that happen, but there's no flash of light and my eyes don't adjust. My vision is full of balls of light. My ears begin to ring out and I enter into this haze of sensory overload. The more I dissociate, and thus more distressed I am, the more balls of light there are, until they begin to join together in the center of my vision, and I can barely see through what remains of my brightened peripheral vision. So hazardous as it is to be so dissociated, and then you tend to end up being disoriented too. I think personally what's worse for me is that other people seem to carry or have a floodlight behind them, as if they are standing right in front of one. So when I'm dissociating and people are trying to help, it's like they're shining a torch directly into my eyeball. And it's really difficult to focus on them and listen when someone's trying to talk to me because they are so bright themselves and all I can hear is buzzing. It's horrendous because I'm comorbid with BPD, borderline personality disorder, which comes with severe attachment issues. So I go about my day radically trying to seek affection from anything that basically is breathing, really, and then just end up too anxious and it all falls to the poop. No connection. Computer says no. I end up perhaps out of politeness or trying to conform with social etiquettes, trying to use all my energy to try and look at them while they're trying to talk to me. Unfortunately, that means I can't take in the sounds they're trying to make or understand the words or sentences they're trying to convey to me. I just get lost in the lights and all my other senses are gone, my body goes numb, and it becomes very overwhelming and makes the whole situation worse. Which, when all you want to do is find calm and ground yourself and return to being a functional human, but your brain won't cooperate anymore. For me, this is when I enter a derealisation state or a depersonalization state, or sometimes both of them at the same time. Although other times I can skip the line, jump ahead and jump straight into them without any warning signs of starting to dissociate. Goodbye world, goodbye body. So how do you know if you're dissociating? Well, here's the summary of it. You may experience difficulty handling intense emotions, feeling very emotionally numb all of a sudden, a sensation that you are floating or drifting, problems with memory, feeling as though the world isn't real, confusion around your identity, and time may seem to move differently to normal. So let's explore those a bit further. We talked about our types of dissociation. So what's the difference between dissociating, derealisation, depersonalization, and denial? Well, first, derealisation, depersonalization, and denial are all types of dissociation. These four can work in a multitude of ways. For example, if you begin to start dissociating and it becomes worse, you can enter into your depersonalization or derealisation, as in my example above. Sometimes you can be dissociating, but you haven't realised it yet, and it can just creep up on you. So you end up denying at all that you're dissociating, when you clearly are to others around you. Other people and disorders go straight to a derealising state or a depersonalised state, or both. Many can live in denial states for years and years. The other two types of dissociation are dissociative amnesia and dissociative fugue, which I'm not going to go into today, but for more information on those, you can check out Google, which I hear is pretty awesome. But seriously, there's another panelist doing that topic, so go check them out because, yay, loving our global community. So we have derealisation, depersonalization, dissociative amnesia, and dissociative fugue. These are the four recognised forms of dissociation in the DSM-5. But, as always, and especially with anything to do with DID, there has been some debate. So here is one of the myths that we're going to be debunking today. There was talk that switching alters was a form of dissociation in itself. On this stance, I personally disagree, as the disorientation and disconnection that is caused is actually caused from a lack of communication between alters in the internal world, rather than a disconnect entirely from one's senses, thoughts, and identities. In other instances, I can see its merits to the slightest minor extent. My example is that of a personal one. Aren't you lucky? I must like you already. I have an alter in my system that has no access to long-term memory, and her short-term memory lasts between 20 to, at best, 60 seconds, and is in a constant state of some degree of dissociation. So it can be argued that I dissociated into the state of that alter who in herself was dissociated. But even in this example, I stand firm in my belief that the transition or switching of alters coming to front is not a dissociation, which was their initial argument. So I say we add this one to our myths about DID myths, because now we know better. Their hypothesis is incorrect. Anyway, I've gone sideways, but it's kind of relevant, and I'm hoping educational in some respect, otherwise, if not intriguing, as to where I fly off to and ramble about next. The answer is application, as in, who does dissociation apply to when we are on the further side of the spectrum that it has become a disorder? Yes, indeed. So, who does this apply to? I have already told you that everybody dissociates, but what we're talking about is to the degree or the level of dissociation that develops, so much so that it advances into a disorder that carries dissociation as a symptom. If you look at the DSM-5, under dissociative disorders, you will only find the 4 disorders: dissociative identity disorder, depersonalization disorder, dissociative amnesia, and dissociative fugue. Sorry, I'm starting to repeat, but I have a point coming up, I swear. In the DSM-6, coming out in 2022, there will be 12 dissociative disorders listed. The world is slowly evolving, really, really slowly, when it comes to the understanding of dissociation. But yet, opposite to that, people still haven't got their heads around or even heard that it is called dissociative identity disorder, instead of the 25-year-old past label of multiple personality disorder. And the media just makes it all the more worse. But I digress again. Yay for overcompensating excitement. Mania to express my nervousness. Anything. Anyway, yes. Hopefully videos like this, and it doesn't have to be this jumbling mess, but hopefully others will spread the word about dissociation and those it can affect. Speaking of which, going back to my point about who it can affect. It is not only those who have a dissociative disorder that can experience dissociation. Dissociation can be found. Wait for it, and you can get your pen ready if you want. Post-traumatic stress disorder, complex post-traumatic stress disorder, derealisation disorder, ODD, or otherwise specified dissociative disorder, PDBB, or partial ZID, borderline personality disorder, and other personality disorders, eating disorders, sleeping disorders, panic and anxiety disorders, attachment disorders, attention deficit disorder, and attention deficit hyperactivity disorder, obsessive compulsive disorder, the autism spectrum disorder, schizophrenia, and ego states disorders. So it's quite a lot of us, really. It's kind of a huge scope of people that are affected, and yet it still remains stigmatized. Ugh. The majority of people, hospitals, doctors, clinics, etc., who work with these patients are uneducated in regard to trauma and dissociation. It is put in the too hard basket. Practitioners are using the same treatment idolations from 25 years ago. All in all, it is seriously unfunded, under-researched, and uneducated. Adding to all that, dissociation can be induced by trauma, physical or sexual abuse, emotional abuse or neglect, substance abuse, self-harm, war, torture, kidnapping, cults, childhood medical procedures, natural disasters, brain injuries or illnesses such as tumours. Not as though anyone wants to induce dissociation, but outside the scope of diagnosable disorders. Many of these are in fact the root cause of disorders I have just listed. These traumas usually occur within childhood. This then in turn affects development, but not all of them are from traumas, so we need to discount those that are purely genetic or from birth defects. The onset can be sudden or gradual, in episodes that last from hours to even years, and stress and environmental factors can trigger episodes or make symptoms much worse. In saying all of this, I'm not trying to paint dissociation as a bad thing, though I think I have, so allow me to recant that and set the record straight. I mean, personally, in my view, the brain is kind of like a superhero. Dissociation is just one example of how it's trying to protect us from being hurt. I mean, creating alters is another. We've got something really special going on. And though dissociation isn't exactly a comfortable experience by any means, in fact, sometimes it feels like it's actually trying to kill us instead of save us, in reality, we have survived because of it. It is the mind's coping mechanism of defense, a trauma-avoiding instrument made from its own devices. It's a weird and wacky shield. And as I said, it doesn't have to be a negative occurrence. In fact, it can be a very handy tool to have on our belt. I mean, scared of public speaking? Dissociation might kick in, and you'll end up being able to give a kick-ass speech without any of the stress. Got a headache? Not anymore. Shut that pain down. A personal favourite of mine happens every week. I have to wait an hour and a half to see the doctor, whether I book an appointment or not, or go get a walk-in. He always seems to be running late. And he doesn't seem to understand the anxiety that it makes me have having to wait. Enter dissociation, and it's like a 5-minute wait every week. But unfortunately, when I ground myself, I tend to kick myself for sitting on the concrete because, oh my god, my back is like, no, why did you sit like that? So it's quite possible, it seems, that it has been, in fact, more than the 5 minutes that I thought. But as a DIDer, time is weird nonetheless. I mean, what is time anyway? A meaningless construct? I'll tell you what it is. Time is merely an abstract. It warps in every way possible for someone with DID. It's slow and it's fast at the same time, and then it doesn't even exist. Poof, your memory's gone. Where has time gone? But anyway, off the beaten track again, and I seem to be tripping out on the concept of time. I don't even know how long I've been talking to you. Back to my notes. There are many studies that show that having an adverse childhood experience, prolonged trauma, leads to a higher increase in developing a diagnosed autoimmune disease and diagnosis, such as chronic fatigue or pleurisy complications in adulthood. So many DIDers have physical illnesses to deal with as well. This is due to being in a constant state of fight or flight during childhood, that our sympathetic nervous system worked in overdrive and it then went on to cause damage in other systems. From these other diagnoses, we experience pain, which can then be a major cause for dissociation, as well as an initial cause for the creation of an alter. Depersonalization. Let's delve into that. For this, we borrowed some lines from text from powertotheplurals.com. Thank you to Sarah Clark, fellow presenter. Guys, go check it out. An amazing resource for all things plural. And plus, they have merchandise. Amazing. So onwards. Depersonalization. Depersonalization is characterized by feeling detached from one's life, thoughts, feelings, and body. People say they feel distant and emotionally unconnected to themselves, as they are watching a character in a boring movie. They can feel out of control, and time may slow down. Many cannot recognize themselves in a mirror. They perceive their bodies to be a different size, shape, and for us on the plural umbrella, a different gender than what they were a minute ago. This dysphoria can be rather unpleasant, and that's a nice word for it. They're very disorientating and is cause for major anxiety. Therefore, the brain reacts and wha-bam! Whoever was fronting in the body feels like they have left the body, almost like it is now an empty vessel. In this state, you can actually be the fly on the wall, if that's where your mind puts you. A quote from a post in Facebook's Alternation, Dissociative Identity Disorder Plural Safe Space. Ever just feel ... completely not know who you are, ? Dash blurry, triple ? I think everybody in Alternation was like, yes. The DSM explains the following on depersonalization. Experiences of unreality, Detachment, or being outside, observing with respect to one's own thoughts, feelings, sensation, body, or actions. Example, perpetual alterations, distortion of sense of time, unreal or absent self, emotional and or feeling physically numbing. Story time. There have been times where I feel like I'm walking a step behind myself or a step in front of myself. Lots of other times I'm watching myself from the other side of the room. Scarier times of feeling like you're just a pair of eyeballs, that you can't even fathom that you exist somewhere else or anywhere else. Not on any plane of existence. You're just a pair of eyeballs. I've also gotten the feeling like I was just a head with a rope coming out the top of my head, and that I was attached to the roof and couldn't move. And my last example was that of also, again, having no body, but my head being on this massive icy pole stick. I'd love to crack a joke here and lighten the mood, but this is the scary stuff that happens. How do you get off an icy pole stick with just a head? You have no arms because you don't have a body, and even if you do manage to accomplish getting off the stick, you still have no body and will forever just be stuck as a head. This is your life now. And I don't really remember covering how to get unstuck off a floating massive icy pole stick in therapy. But I do have DID, so my psych might have mentioned it. We will never know. What you are experiencing is so real that you get lost in the panic, making it worse. So you think you really are going crazy this time. Logical thoughts have left a long time ago, and you're paralyzed because, well, in hindsight, I can see that logically you're so frightened that you're reacting with that fight, flight, freeze response, but in the moment, you can't move because you have no body to move, and that's all that makes sense, because that's all the messages that you're receiving from your nervous system. It's in its own realm of sheer, illogical, paralyzing fear. I generally have a few panic attacks while I'm stuck there, just for good measure, really. I mean, I may as well, I'm stuck here. May as well panic over panicking. There's no time like the present. There seems to be no time frame on it either. You don't know how long you've been there. Sometimes it goes on for hours. It's really how much adrenaline you can produce and continue not to be able to move. It becomes a race between your mind trying to calm itself from the anxiety and rediscover logic versus your body becoming so exhausted that you start to sway and rock as it tries to make you pass out. Trauma, I don't think I'm allowed to swear, sucks. These are what I would call external depersonalization experiences. It's like you've been forcibly projected from your mind and body. But that's just my word, external depersonalization. I literally just made it up then, there's nothing official about it, but I needed it to aid in my next explanation. Because for us DIDs and OSDDs, we can also experience an inner depersonalization. Now bear with me now, these two might catch on. Inner depersonalization is like being stuck in personality soup. It's going from the normal babble of noise in the background while one or two of us are fronting to dead silence. I'm going to quote sections from kinhost.org from our fellow presenter Chris Idman. It's alarming. It can induce panic. Where did everybody go? And who am I now? It's this haunting feeling, a sense of being nobody at all. You're very indistinct. There's no way to tell who is who, where one person ends and another begins, and even to hear each other over the blandness of fog that's going on inside you. You lose yourself. Your identity gets greyed out. You feel like you don't belong here or anywhere, like you don't know who you are anymore. This can be from an internal or external trigger and can happen at any time. Times of high stress can cause a rapid switching of alters, and eventually everybody is moving too fast, so you are everyone at once but actually no one. And then everything turns to fog and you lose the ability of pre-thought. So you have no idea what you're about to say. And this can trigger some of those dissociative, overwhelming sensory overload symptoms we talked about near the start, with the vision dysphoria and the buzzing in your ears. Yeah, those. They might come join in on those thumping beat of your heart party that seems to be going on as you try to restabilize yourself, but also meanwhile thinking that you've just lost your whole inner world and family. But don't panic. I mean, this time the floor might look like it's a wave pool. You never know. Another way of inner depersonalization is due to outdated treatments still being used. Unfortunately, there are still treating professionals that see integration as the only acceptable treatment option for those with DID. When forced upon a system, this horrendous practice forces an alter to integrate with each other. This is where another kind of depersonalization can occur, in that the alter can first appear to have submitted to the integration, when really that alter has depersonalized and you're back to personality soup, followed by panic, anxiety, and a marked sense of loss of identity. To borrow another quote from the Chris's website, if you're in therapy and your doctor is forcing you into an anxious state where you lose your sense of identity, you are not integrating. They should not be encouraging this. Integration takes work, and should be a matter of interpersonal choice, not external force. It should be comforting and exciting, and a state of distress and grappling for a sense of identity seemed counter to this idea. Beautiful words from the Chris's. Thank you for allowing me to share them with the world. Another type of inner depersonalization can occur by an alter triggering another alter. The book The Haunted Self talks on the theory of structural dissociation, explaining that when a non-trauma carrying alter is told about a traumatic memory from another alter, but this alter does not have the personal characteristics to hold a correct emotional response to this information, it can cause a depersonalization, as that alter was not intended to carry traumatic memories and has no means to cope or understand these memories. It may even go against that alter's role within the system. This is an excerpt from a mental illness education media app called The Mighty, which I highly recommend following them, as they have copious amounts of amazing, easy-to-read articles. Sorry for all the plugs, but it's inspiring and relieving to read things published by others who have some understanding of what it's like to live day to day with people like us who have mental illness. So I'm sharing the positivities and passing it around. The article is about borderline personality disorder. To give a bit of context as to why I'm bringing up BPD, I refer to the mental illness Bible of sorts, the DSM. In the DSM-5, it tells us our BPD's list of 9 criteria. I wanted to point out a few. Point number 3, identity disturbance, markedly and persistent unstable self-image or sense of self. Point number 7, chronic feeling of emptiness. And point number 9, transient stress level paranoid ideations, and a severe dissociative symptoms. Sounds like the BPD has also experienced just a touch of dissociations to me. But before we go into it, it's fun fact time. I want to talk to you about another article. I don't know why I've structured it like this, but just stay with me for kicks. This first article is about borderline personality disorder, which according to the following, the Harvard Review of Psychiatric Articles, how very Harvard sounding this title is. It is aptly named Separating the Facts from Fiction, an empirical examination of 6 myths about dissociative identity disorder. Maybe it just sounded much more fancier and proper in my head. Harvard, darling. Nonetheless, I digress. It's a hobby of mine. The article states that approximately 25% of BPD patients endorse symptoms suggesting possible dissociative personality states, e.g., disremembering actions, finding objects that they do not remember, acquiring, and that 10 to 24% of these patients who meet the criteria for BPD also meet the criteria for DID. But when they did a further research and structured studies, they have found that up to 73% of DID subjects met criteria for comorbids in BPD. Thus, about 30% of patients with DID did not meet the full diagnostic criteria for BPD. I just want to note another cool fun fact here, actually in relation to personality disorders. The comorbidity of BPD and DID is second to that of the comorbidity of avoidant personality disorder, ranking in at number 1 with scores between 76% and 96% of DIDs that are comorbid. The morbid facts. Whew. Well, The comorbid ones. Let's not actually go into the sad morbidities that come with DID, especially since the fact tells us that 70% of DIDers will attempt suicide, and that out of all mental illnesses, we have the highest rate of suicide. That's not a fun or a cool fact. That's the scary fact. The hidden truth of DID. 70% will attempt suicide. Anyway, we'll leave that topic alone and jump back to our other chat we were having about comorbidities. We were up to the part where we found out that 73% of DIDers and BPDers are comorbid. And that is such a massive amount. So statistically, most of you will relate to the aforementioned article from the Mighty on the BPD's perspective on derealisation. Hey look, we managed to come back to the point. Well, we tried to make it 5 minutes. Huzzah. So, yes, the Mighty article titled "The Reality of an Often Overlooked Symptom of Borderline Personality Disorder." Whew, I feel all over the place. Trying to stay focused on this. Okay, breathe. Is it anxiety in here or is it just me? Okay. The article, it reads, "Some days I look in the mirror and I have no idea who's staring back at me. Logically, yes. I know I'm looking at myself, but I have BPD. Some days I can't reconcile the person in the mirror as the person who I am. Often, I try to combat this by changing my appearance in quite drastic ways. Impulsively, I chop off my hair, I get new piercings, or radically change my fashion and style. There are periods in my life where no matter what I alter about myself, I still don't feel like I am me. This is really difficult. I think we take for granted that everybody has a sense of self, a knowledge that the body that they dress up and make up is their body that they see when they look in the bathroom mirror. This lack of connection to self is not just limited to physical and aesthetic attributes. Most of the time, I have no idea who I am. I feel like I'm completely and utterly false, getting through life by creating a mental checklist of things to reel off when someone asks me about myself. Without this list to tick off, ask me to talk about myself, and I can't. Ask me what I enjoy doing in my free time. I have no idea. Ask me to tell you about my personality, and I draw a blank." As a comorbid DIDer and BPDer myself, I experience the world in complete extremes. There's an aspect of black and white thinking known as splitting that makes everything and everyone either safe or unsafe, or good or bad. Borderlines are well known for their empathetic ability to read others' emotions, and this can be born out of trauma, for living constantly on high alert in order to read the abuser's mood in order to sense if there's an imminent danger or not. In public, they may inadvertently be on the lookout for potential other abusers. A passage from Psychology Today, titled "Borderline Empathy Revisited," says, those intimately familiar with BPDs have noted a paradox. On one hand, people with BPD exhibit varying degrees of apparent distortion in the way they interpret the verbal and non-verbal communications of others. This often takes the form of ascribing hurtful intention to others based on limited, selective, or ambiguous cues. On the other hand, many have also observed an astute capacity in individuals with BPDs to accurately read emotional expressions in others. People can be caught off guard with BPDs perceives their current emotional state, which they may not be fully aware of themselves. Some BPD experts have labelled this acuity as borderline empathy. A funny meme that I came across the other day is a great example of a borderline's perception and the extremes that we go to and the irrational thought process that our minds take from the littlest things. Me. "So, did you mean it when we said we were done?" Him. When did I say that?" Me. "When you closed the car door handle harder than usual." Living and experiencing everything in an extreme form leaves little gap between existing within the safe, clear-minded, calm state where you can make decisions and dissociating. A page from Sensory Motor Psychotherapy Intervention for Trauma and Attachment by Ogden and Fisher talks about the signals of autonomic arousal, about trying to remain within the window of tolerance in the optimal arousal zone. Experiencing hyperarousal is being stuck in that fight or flight response. You may be feeling extreme amounts of either anger, afraid, enraged, panicked, anxious, nervous, or irritated. This can cause dissociation. Other times you may be experiencing hypoarousal. Emotions such as depression, bored, lethargic, disconnected, despairing, unmotivated, hopeless, or discouraged. And these states can also cause dissociation. So yes, if you understood all that, we can dissociate if we get too excited, too bored, too sleepy, and of course, too anxious. Life is a tightrope of balancing our moods in order to stay present within our body. We still have more to talk about in relation to types of dissociation, so let's move on to derealisation. Derealisation can be described as experiences of unreality or detachment with respect to your surroundings. This can include distorted perceptions of time, space, and size of things around you, feelings of unreality from the world around you, as if in a dream or trance-like state. Individuals or objects are experienced as unreal, dreamlike, foggy, lifeless, or visually distorted. You can have a feeling like everything's foggy, fuzzy, or warped, a sense of being disconnected from those around you, as if you are trapped in a bubble, and have thoughts that you're going crazy or becoming very ill. Here is an example of someone's experience when they have derealized. Imagine a video where someone is talking, but the audio is out of sync, and how it makes them look not human. Imagine that, except that the audio you're experiencing isn't mistimed. Everyone around you looks like this, and you can't be sure of when it will end. Also, sometimes it can feel as if your current actions don't have any consequence. A dream mentality, which is very dangerous when everything seems plausible. Personally, I sometimes have extreme anxiety that nothing I'm experiencing is real during these times. But psychologically, I'm not fine when it's happening. Physically, I may look it. You feel as if you don't belong to the universe. You don't even recognize things that are familiar. You feel unreal, emotionless and numb. Everything looks and feels foreign and alien. People tend to look like stop-motion animation instead of humans. Objects are foreign. I remember once trying to take a photo with a pair of scissors. Derealization can also occur when an alter fronts who isn't used to living in the outer world and is only used to the inner world, and this world doesn't match the one that which they are used to. Our third D is denial. It is one of the stages of grief. Many people assume that once you go through denial stage and come to acceptance, you won't have to deal with denial again. The reality is that denial can occur at any time. A person with DID may not experience denial until years after his or her diagnosis. It is even possible for a person to deny their diagnosis, accept it, and then deny it again at a later time. A quote from a blog called Healthy Space. I experienced a series of troubling flashbacks and a new memories triggered by the upcoming holiday season. It sent me into a complete emotional chaos. I didn't want to believe that the flashbacks and memories are true. I couldn't handle acknowledging and accepting that we, my partner and I, went through trauma. So instead, I cut myself off from it. I told myself that these flashbacks were just real bad nightmares my mind made up to scare me. But denying those flashbacks and memories didn't stop the chaos that was going on inside my inside world. My anger in my teenage part was angering me more than ever. A younger part was upset and wouldn't stop crying because she missed our mother. And this was completely contradictory to me because our mother was the very person who hurt us. The person who made those flashbacks and memories so unbearable and difficult to accept. I tried to rationalize everything. I told myself the memories couldn't be real because if they were, I wouldn't be dealing with a crying child who misses her mother. A child who wouldn't miss the very person that hurt her. Once I took myself into denying my trauma, I talked myself into denying my trauma. I used that to deny my diagnosis. I told myself that since I didn't experience any trauma, I didn't have DID. The flashbacks were made up and the voices in my head were just figments of my imagination. Those with DID experience denial in many, many ways. Denying of diagnosis, trauma, alters, their memories, other people's recollections of past events, body's dysphoria, words, actions, agreements, events, dates, and appointments booked in that were done by different alters. If there is no internal communication, It can be hard to know what's real or not, and dissociative amnesia plays a big part in this, as can returning from a hibernated state or episodes of dissociative fugue. If you can't remember what happened, who can you trust to remind you if something did? It becomes a constant, did I really tell you that? Oh my god, I'm so sorry. I don't know why I would say that. Alters have different personalities. They hold their own logics, belief, and morals. And this may clash with other alters. And as a community, when a major decision needs to be made, an internal meeting to discuss what course should be taken needs to occur in order to find what's best. Other times it can be asking each individual alter. I love stories you hear from the community about what our littles get up to, as children and denial don't go so well together, and it's definitely not one of their favourite things. Going to the supermarket can be highly problematic. Lots of us avoid certain aisles in order to avoid triggering somebody out. You can be looking and trying to focus on which bread you'd like to choose one moment, and then the next, you're at the checkouts and your basket is full of lollies and chocolate and no bread. I remember reading somewhere about going in to get a drink and it turning into absolute inner chaos because Kate wanted a Diet Coke and Brian wanted a strawberry milkshake, Tina wanted an iced tea, Luke wanted an energy drink, Zoe wanted a juice box, Liam wanted just water, and Tony wanted soup. Repressed alters can lead to explosive situations, both in the internal world and external world. I had a fight alter that wanted to hurt the body, and I had my gatekeeper refuse to allow him to front in retaliation. He then burnt down most of the internal world, and it took a long time and work rebuilding from the ashes what was lost. The DID community faces one of the biggest battles with denial from the external world. From treating professionals down to friends and family and the media, we have a long way to go to breaking the stigma that surrounds DID. Education and research in the medical field and supporting services that can treat both patients and educate families and friends on how to be supportive. With such misinformation and denial from everybody, it's no wonder that we try to deny our true selves. So it comes down to what we can control or work towards, and what's out of our hands. What can we do when we first feel ourselves dissociating? First things first is recognizing when it's happening, so you can get on top of it as soon as possible. Second to that is accepting that it's happening. Here's where that denial card comes into play again. By denying and trying to ignore what's happening, it may just make the dissociation worse. It can be hard for protectors or others in your system to front and take over, the more detached you become. From here, you can utilize many options. Some will take medications. Well, they can still remember too. Others become focused on trying to identify the trigger in order to either remove themselves away from it, solve it, or fix the problem that started it. Once we know what the trigger is and begin to recognize them, only then can we start to prevent being triggered further in the future. So once we know our triggers, we can begin to recognize when they're happening, and we can see them for what they are, an overreaction to a perceived threat. We could then learn to respond in a way that's more life-affirming, useful, and healthy for us. Sometimes making notes and starting a list can help you keep track of what your triggers are. You could then choose a better way to respond, and this can take time, as it may not work for the first time round. You'll have to practice before you'll see any improvements. For example, when someone's yelling at you, you simply agree with whatever they're saying just so they'll stop yelling at you, so then you can reground yourself. But talking to this person and telling them that when they yell at you, it scares you so much that you don't even take in any of the words that they are yelling, and that hopefully you can find a better way to communicate when they feel like they need to yell, can be a really good solution. So don't get discouraged if you or they falter, as it can take time to learn new ways of being. Perhaps if the person won't stop their poor behaviour, it signifies to you that you may need to leave the room and set a boundary to show them that it's not acceptable behaviour, and this way it keeps you safe. It will be trial and error for every trigger, but if you can keep practicing and have a new response, and just keep practicing them until Over time, they become your new habits. In this way, you are choosing powerfully that you are consciously on your own, responding to people and situations and circumstances. You aren't just blindly reacting anymore. Life is full of triggers, you know this, but you also know that you have the choice and the power to respond to these triggers in ways that are healthy and can achieve better outcomes. In this way, you're transforming your life for good. Grounding. Now, I'm sure you've heard of this one. Grounding involves getting in touch and stimulating your senses, touch, taste, smell, hearing, and sight, to get you back in contact with your body. There are lots of different exercises out there that you can do to try this. A favorite of mine is the 5 to 1, and you can change which senses you want as to which number. For example, you pick 5 things that you can see, 4 things that you can touch, 3 things you can hear, 2 you can smell, and 1 that you can taste. Stimulating your taste buds is particularly popular. It is advisable to use something that will give attention to you, something that's very sour or hot. You would think our community really loves hot sauce by the amount of us that carry it around. Mindfulness activities involve focusing on the here and now and experiencing something by focusing solely on that particular thing and enjoying the moment and present with it. One activity that comes to mind is eating a sultana for 5 minutes. Another can be colouring. Practically anything can fit into this as long as you change your mindset about the way you are doing it, as long as it is a calming activity. If you want to mindfully fold the washing, then, and that works for you, that's awesome. Please come to my house as soon as possible. Other ways can include connecting yourself via music. Some systems have put together playlists just for these stressful moments that appeal to particular alters in order to bring them forward. Others can use the music for whoever is fronting as a way to ground them. Others may choose music to meditate to and to find calmness in that. Another way is to use relaxation techniques, including breathing exercises, body scanning, repetitive prayer, or yoga and tai chi. It could be going to have a shower or a bath, or putting on your favorite show or movie. Another strategy is to distract yourself. Though this isn't to ignore the dissociation, it is to let it be and allow it to be while you focus on doing something else. Your distraction could be how you are about to remove yourself from the toxic environment and your escape plan around that. Artwork is another popular choice here. My favorite that my psych tells me to do is to go for a run, which, although is the last thing on my mind that I want to do, actually makes sense with all the chemicals firing in my brain. They are already in fight or flight mode. I'm already shooting off chemicals ready for a run. So, they're ready for my run to burn them off, really. Finally, my last technique when dissociating is only to be done if you feel safe to do so, and you have a system that has the ability to do this, and that is to call out an alter to the front, to take the wheel for a bit, while the fronting alter has a breather. Alternatively, you can bring someone else out to be co-conscious with you, so they are taking on some of the load and sharing that with you. Well, we have come to the end of our journey on the 3Ds. I hope you've had a little laugh and learnt a lot. I have had such a ball putting this together for you for our Plural Positivity World Conference. Sending big love out from the Elephant Journal System and from Australia. We hope you have an amazing rest of conference, and I'll leave you with one final Jad joke. I'm so sorry that we had to talk about the elephant in the room.